Hey everybody, Mrs. Norris here. So I'm going to walk you through our culminating activity where we are going to show what we have learned about the reform movements of the 19th century. So before we get started, let's go over the assignment that you have in front of you. This assignment is called Antebellum Reform. Where will you put your 100 grand? What I want you to know, or the question I want you to answer, is what reforms most benefit American society and why? I would like you to understand that there were periods of boom and bust that created both progress and poverty in response to the strains brought about by rapid industrialization. An age of reform began in which attempts were made to make life more bearable for the less fortunate and to expand opportunities for many. The Second Great Awakening inspired religious zeal, social reforms such as equal education for women and African Americans, and eventually support for the abolitionist movement. As more Americans grew concerned about people who were considered to be downtrodden, they turned their reform impulses from churches and philanthropies to other sectors of society. So, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be, based on what you learned about the 19th century reform movement, evaluating which of those movements is the most deserving of your financial support and explain why. So, let's look at the directions first, and then we'll go through the rest of this activity. Number one, you're going to make a copy of the file Funding for Reform, and we'll do that in a moment, making sure that we delete the words copy of and type your first and last name. Using what you've already learned about the 19th century reform movements, as well as the text below, and I'll look at that as well, complete the chart on your document. Submit your work in Canvas when you are done by going to File, Download PDF, and submit that PDF in Canvas. There's a tutorial here to show you how to do that if you are not sure. Okay, so let's look at the overview. The year is 1856. 10 years ago, America won a war with Mexico and is feeling quite good about itself. However, military triumphs over a neighboring country have not resolved many conflicts at home. In the wake of the Second Great Awakening, a variety of reform movements are taking shape to work on social problems throughout the United States. You want the country to improve and have some money to help the cause. This activity asks you to think about where you want to put your money. Here's your task. It is a warm March day in 1856. Your great uncle Augustus and Aunt Fanny, whom you love greatly, call you to their house. Uncle Augustus and Aunt Fanny are very old and do not expect to live much longer. They tell you they are giving you $100,000, their entire life savings. Their wish is that you give the money to two reform movements. You are to pick the causes. For reasons known only to Augustus and Fanny, they want the money distributed in a specific way. $70,000 to the most needy cause and $30,000 to the next most needy cause. Choose your two causes and support your reasoning using evidence from the documents that follow. And we've already gone over quite a lot of this, so the documents are there to just support and remind you. In other words, where will you put your 100 grand? Okay, so let's look first at this document and then I'll go through the top, reviewing the directions. Okay, so the first page is the same as what we just talked about above with the overview and the task. Okay. Now you can see that this document is going to give you more support for more understanding of those movements that you have already learned about last week. So we have women's rights, we have public education, prison or mental asylum reform, temperance, and that was our last one. Okay, so what I would like for you to do is use these just to support you if there was something you don't remember about what you learned last week. These are also great resources that are going to offer you additional information that the resources from last week did not give you. So it's a good tool to have to help you while you are completing this assignment, okay? What is not on here, there are a couple of reforms that are not on here. So I'd like you to stick to the reforms that are discussed here. Again, we have women's rights, public education, prison or mental asylum reform, and then temperance. You also learned about abolition. So unless you know a whole lot about abolition and can really explain yourself well without any evidence from this document here, then I'd like you to stay away from it. Instead, focus on the 4 that we have on this assignment. Okay. Let's go back up to the directions and let's make a copy of this file. So I'm going to go funding for reform and I'm going to make a copy of the document. And then before I do anything else, I'm going to put my name where I should be. So instead of copy of, I'm going to put my first and last name. And you know, I like to use my stepson's name as an example. Okay. So again, here we have those 4 movements from your learning last week, as well as the ones that are further supported from this PDF at the bottom of your assignment. Okay, so what you're going to be doing is in the first column here, in this column, what are the major problems that this movement is trying to solve? So what did you learn about each of these movements? And again, you can go back to the assignment that we did last week if that will help you, or you can refer to this document here, okay? But basically, what were the problems that were happening in America that each of these movements were trying to resolve? Okay. In the second column here, how could money be used to help this movement? So the whole point of this is you are giving them money. What do you think this money is going to do to help further the movement along, to help it be more successful? What kind of programs could that money be used to finance? What kind of materials could it be? Pamphlets about the movement, maybe protest materials like protest signs, gathering people together and renting out a space for meetings. Like, what are the different ways that the money could help with this movement? In the third column here, what issues would a gift of money be unable to resolve? Okay, so what would be out of the realm that any amount of money is not going to help at all? And then finally, if this movement received funding, how could it benefit other movements, right? So especially because it doesn't have abolition in this activity particularly, how could giving money to maybe prison reform help the abolition movement? How could giving money to women's rights help one of the other movements on the list, maybe? Okay, so that's what you're thinking about here. Try to come up with 2 to 3 bullet points for each of these. Okay. And then down at the bottom, my decision. Your explanation for why each reform movement deserves the selected amount should be 5 to 7 sentences long and should include evidence from your learning that shows your understanding of what the movement is about and how it will better the community if given this funding. So you're kind of putting everything that you've discussed up here, down here, and using it to defend why you think that group deserves your money. Okay, again, 5 to 7 sentences. Make sure that you are including evidence, okay, that's going to show your understanding of what it's about and how it's going to better the community. Okay, so once you are done with this assignment, then you're going to go ahead and go to File, Download as a PDF, and then this will be the document that you upload into Canvas using the file upload.